right. It is between the pipes, post game one of the Western Conference Finals, and your final score here this evening. The Vegas Golden Knights beat the Colorado Avalanche 4-2. I'm Mark Springer. I'm riding solo, at least for now. Alex Ryan-Emmy's throat he's got an upper body injury. He's got the sore throat. The voice isn't working. Um, I filled in for Raj on the morning sprint earlier today, and I brought up the adversity that Raj is facing right now, and the Avs were faced with some adversity even this morning when it was announced and revealed that Cale Makar would not be playing in tonight's game. You knew that was less than ideal. You'd rather have the best defenseman in the world, and it certainly showed for numerous reasons. But adversity now in the form of falling 1-0 in this series, falling down 1-0. Home ice, at least right now, right off the bat, is gone for the Avs in an uninspiring performance. Certainly in the first two periods, got better in the third period. I did say to myself out loud, watching the third period when, Nichushkin scores and he makes it 3-1. Nice play by Val. Really good play by Val. Give and go between Val and Ross Colton. In the ensuing 15 minutes, that goal was scored about 5 minutes into the third period. It was better. And then I said out loud, I said, oh, now you choose to show up. Now you try to play. Okay. You just had to get down 3-0 to, I guess that's the Avs thing of late, is get down 3-0 at home and then they start trying. Difference here tonight is one, well, it was too little too late. You can't live on that. You cannot live on 3-0 comebacks. That's not sustainable. You can pot a couple of those, but you cannot live off of those. You will ultimately fall well below 50%. In your win percentage if you're consistently putting yourself down 3-0. But also different from the game 5 against the Wild is, the Wild were tired. They got, I was thinking maybe, I didn't know when these Western Conference Finals were going to start. Remember last Thursday nights, we're all rooting for the Anaheim Ducks to push at 7, so that would extend that series, but didn't even matter. They scheduled game 1 for tonight, this Wednesday night. So Vegas had time off. They were not as tired as Minnesota was in that game 5. They clearly wanted it more. I'll start there. Like, hats off to the Vegas Golden Knights. Like, they just played the better game, the cleaner game. They were the quicker team, half step quicker to every play and in better position. Didn't make many mistakes at all in this game. There was a stretch midway through the first period where the Mitch Marner line had extended zone time in the Avs D zone, the Knights O zone, and that was my first little eyebrow raising. What's going on here? And I had another good extended offensive zone shift a few moments later. They were out shooting Colorado 8-4 early in this game. The Avs did come back and ultimately outpace them in shots on goal. And ultimately, they do outshoot them by 10, 38-28. But let's be honest, if we were watching we were. That's why you're watching this show, because we all watched the first 2 periods of that game. And the only Avs player offensively worth a damn, this is the truth, was Logan O'Connor. Or no one, I guess they climbed back and, got the shots on goal lead back, but none of them were dangerous outside of 3 Logan O'Connor chances. I don't even think one of his counts as a shot on goal because they hit the post. So outside of Logan O'Connor, it was nothing. And that was top to bottom. Brock Nelson had a few chances. Believe it or not, Brock Nelson, who continues to miss nets and not be able to score pretty much at all. In fact, he fell down. I think Brock Nelson falling down, and I don't think that was a trip. That is what leads to the Dylan Coghlan goal. Dylan Coghlan, of all people, a third pair defenseman, kind of journeyman, 28-year-old, scores his first goal of the playoffs. Nelson did have a few chances offensively, wasn't as dangerous as O'Connor. O'Connor was the only guy who actually looked like he had some juice to him offensively. They did wake up in the third. As I said, they did. Nathan McKinnon got going. Jared Bednar, end of the second period, decided to mess with the line some. We started to see a little bit of Lehkonen up on the top line instead of Marty Necas. It was Lehkonen, Landeskog, and McKinnon, although there were a couple Necas shifts with the top line. So it was somewhat of some change. And when Nichushkin scored, it was the third line that was, on the lineup card going into tonight. It was Nichushkin, Colton, and Kadri. But there was some shifting. You saw Nick Waugh float between a couple lines. They tried to jumpstart his offense. There was really no need to pull Scott Wedgwood and put Mackenzie Blackwood in. You could have, that's what he did game 3 in Minnesota. And that was not on Wedgwood once again, when you were down in that game. But I think that was just a spark move to put Blackwood in. He decided to not play that spark move. It's the third period. It's probably futile at that point when you're down 3-0. I don't think Wedgwood was the reason they were down 3-0. It was the play in front of him. But the spark he went with, and then this time, instead of a goalie switch, was to just switch the lines a little bit. I will say, I liked the decision to move Necas away from the top line. I liked that decision by Jared Bednar. I felt as if Necas and McKinnon out there with Landeskog. And for me, it was Necas and McKinnon. There was no puck hunt on that top line because McKinnon and Necas they're not forechecking aces. Certainly Marty Necas is not. Marty Necas does not forecheck. He's got a lot of Mikko Rantanen in him in that respect. McKinnon's improved that game, but when it's just Landeskog trying to hunt pucks and it's Necas and McKinnon just kind of looking for openings, they couldn't get possession. The Knights were too solid and responsible defensively. They needed another puck hunter up there. I like the move to put Lehkonen up there. I did. I think that it was too clogged for McKinnon and Necas. Necas got a couple of open looks when they took him away from McKinnon in the third period. He also did have a good give and go play with McKinnon when they did play one of their shifts together in the third. Necas got a good backhand look. But I just thought the overall effort, and to me, forecheck is a simple, it's just a simple day one, let's start there type thing. There was none of that. I mean, the top line was the most invisible line, which is a problem in the first two periods. It really was. If I were to rank the four lines through the first two periods, I'd go fourth line 1. I'd go third line 2, the Kadri, Colton, and Nichushkin line. I'd go Nelson, Waugh, and Lehkonen 3, and the top line 4. That's not good. You don't want your top line being your most invisible line. And here's the thing. Okay, this is actually several things we can talk about here. Several things on my mind. How about this one? A lot of people annoyed at ESPN tonight. Seeing that out there. Personally, I think McDonough's fine. I think Ferraro's fine. I don't necessarily care too much about the broadcasters themselves. I'm more focused on the action. What did catch my eye was something that caught a lot of people's eye. And it's funny how, I kind of have a little bit different take on it now than I did 3 hours ago. Apparently, the 4 of the pregame show, or the 4 pregame show folks, Kevin Weeks, Mark Messier, PK Subban, and Steve Levy, 3 of the 4 picked the Knights to win this series. It's an interesting flex. The Avs win the President's Trophy. We're 8-1 coming into tonight. 3 of 4 to pick against that is odd. But hey, guess what? Guess what? This is where the evolved part comes in. Right now, where we stand, they're right. Where we stand right now, they're right. They were smart, at least as of right now, to have picked the Vegas Golden Knights. Yeah, PK Subban struggled to remember Logan O'Connor's name, but damn it, he picked the Knights, and at least I assume he was one of the three. I actually can't remember which three actually it were, but they were right. Um, hate on them all you want, but as of right now, they were right. Now, am I panicking? Does this mean that Vegas is going to win this series because they stole this game? Like they looked like the better team for the better part of this game. That is very concerning. Kale Makar's status is of significant note. But look, this team, before I get into Kale, and there's some stuff to talk about there, this team has shown resiliency in the bounce back factor all season long, okay? And if there's one game to lose, it would be game one. Will they rue this game? Will this game haunt them? Potentially. Potentially. You could look back on the lack of effort in the first two periods, and that could be the difference in this series. But, this was a similar effort to game three in Minnesota. And what did they do in game four? They played one of their cleanest games of the playoffs and won a very responsible game four. So, the Avs are the Thunder of the NHL. And, this is we're in a similar pattern here is, the Spurs upset the Thunder and when I say it, I just mean best team. The Avs don't flop like Rasmus Anderson or Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, but the Thunder bounced back in their game two to even that series up. So that's what the Avs need to do. They need to tie this series up at one. And now the path is a little different than in the Minnesota series. The nice and easy in five recipe is a little harder right now, which is, just hold your two at home, steal one on the road, clean it up at game five at home. It's a true recipe that was true and through in round two, but that's now more difficult. And look, the Vegas Golden Knights underperformed in the regular season. The Pacific Division was a nightmare, but the Tortorella bump seems to be a legitimate thing. He is a very good coach. He gets the best out of his players. That's a team that desperately needed to get the best out of some underachieving players. And now they're playing their best hockey at the right time. And we've seen 8 seeds. We've seen dangerous teams with veteran experience in lower seeded situations. I believe the Knights the Lightning were a 3 seed in the East when the Avs faced them in the Cup in 2022. Florida was an 8 seed. Vegas is one of those, underachieved, some injuries, but just got playing at the right time. And they're tough. They're tough. They are on the level of Minnesota. They are on the level of Dallas when they are clicking. So this is going to be a tough series. This might be the longer one. They are now 8-2 in the playoffs. So 16-4 is what they went when they won a cup last time. 8-2 is exactly on that pace. That is actually exactly on that pace. So they were not going to go 16-1. 16-1 is a weird number too. You don't go 16-1. Nobody goes 16-1. That one is just weird right there. You'd have thought maybe they drop one in Vegas instead of on your home ice at home when you had plenty of time to prepare. Let's talk about Cale Makar with that segue right there, because they had a week off. And I thought that this week off would potentially be enough time for Cale to play, given that he did finish the game 5. He played 25 minutes in that wild game 5. But he was not ready to go. And I think the area where they missed him the most, and they missed him in a lot of areas tonight. They missed Cale Makar in a lot of areas. But I think the area that they missed him the most, for me, is the power play. The power play to me was awful tonight, even though they do get a power play goal in the 6-on-4. And it was, for the record, that 6-on-4 started off terribly. That started off terribly. Like Kadri and Nelson, maybe it was Nelson, but Kadri and someone had a weird exchange. I mean, Taves was over there on the right side. Pucks got cleared out a couple times. Devon Taves can run the point, but he does not do it to the level that Cale does. He doesn't move the puck. He doesn't walk the blue line. He does not shoot to the level of Kale Makar from the point. I was wanting to see Malinsky out there instead of Taves. I found myself thinking that watching Taves at the point. Now, over the years when Kale was out, and Kale did miss some time with some upper body injuries, in his career. He's not the biggest defenseman. He's not small, but he's gotten checked high and has had to miss some time. This is not a new thing for Kale Makar. It's never been an overly extended absence in these scenarios. But in years past, Taves would man the point and he'd be admirable. But, Taves is a little older now. And I don't know. I found myself wanting Malinsky's right handed shot as well, as opposed to the left handed shot of Taves that they're just not used to as much. But I think Malinsky skates a little more similarly to Makar. Obviously, he's not Kale Makar. I thought Sam Malinsky in the third period was a driver of the offense in the 5-on-5. He got that shot blocked, when he was on power play too, that led to the breakout goal for Vegas. So he was in the point, and he did get a shot blocked in that respect. I thought that was a little panicky from Sam Malinsky as that power play was winding down, just a little desperate to get a shot through, but he was getting shots through in the third period. Thought Malinsky did a really good job. There were some tips off some Malinsky shots. If Kale's not available on Friday night, I would consider putting Malinsky on power play one. That's something I would look at. But you miss Kale. You obviously miss him in the 5-on-5 offensively because they were getting nothing. They were getting nothing. And, where Kale is absolutely elite as a defenseman is his playmaking ability offensively, how he starts the play, how he can create the play and the rush from the back end, manipulate the screeners and the bodies in front of net with his skating at the point. You really missed that tonight. You really did. Now, look, there's similarities to Nuggets Timberwolves. Okay, you're without Kale Makar. They're without Mark Stone, their best defensive forward. And guess what? They played excellent defense tonight. They were sound. They were very responsible defensively. They blocked a lot of shots in this game. They were like one step ahead of the Avs on their rotations. When the Avs would move pucks to get shots, Vegas was right there for block shots. They were focused in. There is no doubt that they know that they are better than the gap that some might perceive in this series, and they are. And I think they wanted to prove a point tonight, and they played as clean a game as they could play. In fact, that's probably the cleanest game they could play. They were damn near perfect in terms of responsibility. Can they keep that up? Can they keep that up and do it for 4 wins in this series? Something about Vegas. Is there something about Vegas where they just have the Avs number? They're now on a 5-game losing streak to the Knights in the playoffs. And so I'll bring this up from Homopolis in the chat. Now Spring respects Vegas. Yes, I respect Vegas. I just think the Avs are elite and the best team. I just think they're the best team. I thought the Wild were damn good, and the Avs beat them in 5. So they're much better than what they showed tonight. And I, for the first time, one thing I felt, and I could be, this was just a gut feeling. This is an absolute just gut feeling thing with, why were they so lackluster in the first 2 periods? That's something that they would do when they didn't have Landeskog over the last 3 years at home. I can remember Seattle Kraken and Dallas Stars games where they're on their home ice, and it just looks like, okay, boys, like when are you gonna kick this into gear here? And that's a thing because we saw it in the third period. They did kick it into a higher gear. I don't know why they did not do that in periods 1 and 2. Look, I had talked about a factor of the Wild feeling like the Stanley Cup Finals, because that's what the Central Division felt like all season long. Avs 1, Stars 2, Wild 3. That's what it felt like all season long. And really, whoever it was, Dallas or Minnesota, who came out of that series, felt like it was, in fact, the 2 best teams playing in that second round series. a de facto Stanley Cup final. So there could have been, and maybe that was some of what it was tonight. It was a theory I had. Is it something to be concerned about that I presented? Was how do you get yourself back up? How do you remotivate yourself when you know you just beat one of the three best teams in the league? Vegas was middling all season long. I know that Vegas has gotten hotter, but it was Utah and Anaheim. Could you really take them seriously? And perhaps the Avs, there could have just been a deep feeling of we beat Minnesota, now we're invincible. We've won the cup, now we're just going to walk to the thing. Okay, well maybe there was some of that tonight. Maybe there is some tightness with the pressure of knowing this is your year, and it's been 4 years. Because as opposed to the game 3 in Minnesota, maybe some of this is just that they were on their home ice and it makes it feel a little differently as opposed to being on the road like they were in that game 3 in Minnesota. But on their home ice tonight, and we want them to attack. We want them to be aggressive from the jump, but it felt like this team was content in the first couple periods. This game was scoreless. This was a 0-0 game about midway through. Half a game and it's 0-0. And again, Logan O'Connor's only had a couple dangerous looks in this game. It felt to me as if the Avs just were content to not make mistakes. They were content to just play clean, and there's no Kale behind us, so let's tighten up even more so defensively. Felt like they were playing like the LA Kings. Like they just decided to play cautiously and not be aggressive and turn the puck over and allow a breakaway the other way. Hey, you got Scott Wedgwood back there. It's okay. Trust your goaltending. Trust Wedgwood. Trust Blackwood if he has to come in, especially Wedgwood, who has made some elite breakaway, penalty shot, shootout shot saves this season. But perhaps there was a sense of let's just not make mistakes. And we'll just strike at an opportune time. Well, guess what? You made the first big mistake. You did. Brock Nelson fell down. And you make one mistake and you're not pushing offensively. And now Vegas believes. And Dylan Coughlin's scoring. And then, of course, you get the Ross Colton roughing on Rasmus Anderson. I alluded to this earlier. That was a penalty on Ross Colton. That's a glove to the face. Now, was that embellishment by Rasmus Anderson? He did act like he got sweet chin music by Shawn Michaels. That was a lot. But when you're playing on your heels, the refs aren't going to give you the benefit of the doubt for calls. It's like in baseball in a strike zone. If you're not hitting the strike zone, now ABS is a thing. You can review it. But if you're not in the strike zone and you do hit a corner, I'm still might call it a ball. Because you haven't been throwing strikes. So, Benny in the chat says, you can't blame the refs on this one, Spring. I'm not. No, I'm questioning the, potential embellishment of Rasmus Anderson, but I said that's a penalty on Ross Colton. And end of the day, it was your effort that cost you this game. There's no doubt about it. And it's easy, like so easy with the Avs. The Avs are so easy to tell when they have it and when they don't. Because when they have it, they're the best watch in hockey. And they're flying and they're aggressive. There was none of that. If you'd been hearing about the Avs and people have been tweeting about them on social media, oh my gosh, like 9 goals in game 1, and look at that McKinnon goal that tied the game 5, and this team. If you watched them tonight, you would have been like, what? Turns out the whole 2-3 thing with Minnesota and Dallas and this idea of, and the Pacific Division was ass. Like, let's be clear about that. The Pacific Division was ass this year. And I am a sample size guy, and I would like to believe that over the course of a full 82, and that you can't just fire your coach. I said this with Malone and Adelman. You can't just fire your coach. I said this at the time. You can't just fire your coach and expect that it's going to lead you to a championship when you fire him in April. Like, but we got ourselves a Western Conference Finals. They're playing their best hockey at the right time. And um, at the very least, they look every bit the level of Minnesota. They do. They're the evolution of a Pavel Dorofiev. It's a goal scorer, man. 10 goals now in the playoffs. And that's a great play by Mitch Marner. That was the best play of the game. McKinnon somewhat matched him with his throw on the brakes and find Landeskog in the slot on that power play. Nichushkin's net drive was real nice, and the give and go pass to Colton. But that Marner gather, that extension to gather that pass that is beyond him, and to know Dorofiev is behind him, that was the play of the game. And, end of this game, because at the end of 2 periods, I was thinking to myself, man, Mitch Marner looks like the best player on the ice. And Nathan McKinnon's playing in this game. Even Marty Natchez is playing in this game. Mitch Marner is a really good player. I really like Mitch Marner. And he'd been my favorite player on the Leafs to watch. Like, the most exciting. Like, maybe some people are Austin Matthews guys. I get that. I like more well-rounded playmaker type guys. And Marner to me is more that. Right now, I mean, Mitch Marner leads the NHL these playoffs in points. He came into tonight with 18 points. Got himself that really nice assist. He's up to 19. Bizarro world right now, where we stand on this day, Mitch Marner is the best player in the NHL. Now, obviously, he's not. It's Nathan McKinnon and Connor McDavid. But right now, tonight, Mitch Marner is the best player in the NHL. And that obviously has to change. Like, Nathan McKinnon has to be the best player. He has to be better than Mitch Marner in this series. They need to help Nathan McKinnon out. And as I mentioned earlier, talking about the Bednar blender that we saw to a degree, not entirely, but to a degree in the late second and early third period of this game, I would consider, in addition to my one recommendation of putting Malinsky on power play 1, I would consider, and I say recommendation for Malinsky, things to consider. It's really just more things to consider. Splitting up Natchez and McKinnon. The Knights aren't going to give anything to you here. If they play like they did tonight, and they're not going to play like that all series long, if this thing goes 6 or 7. But they're going to have stretches where they play like that. They're clicking right now. The Knights are hot right now. Got hot at the right time. And they were so sound defensively. I was very impressed with their responsibility defensively. Very impressed by Braden McNabb and Shea Theodore tonight. They were excellent defensively. Very impressed by Rasmus Anderson and Noah Hannafin. Even the Ben Hutton, Dylan Coghlan, and Coghlan scores, and Hutton had an assist. It's actually a really solid decor. The Pietrangelo days are over, but it's solid. Now, there's no Kale. They don't blow you away, but they're solid. So you got to force the issue on them. You got to go win pucks in corners. Okay, they're not going to give you that open ice that Natchez and McKinnon want playing together. They're going to have to work for it. And I don't know right now about McKinnon and Natchez together in a hunt puck aspect. But you have guys who do that very well. Gabe Landeskog on that top line does it very well, but I don't like it just being him out there. And this isn't the regular season anymore. I didn't feel this way in the regular season. Now I feel this way in the playoffs when things tighten up. When the ice isn't as open. You have Lehkonen. You have Nichushkin. Brock Nelson can do it. Although Nelson's speed or lack of speed to me is starting to become a little bit of a factor. I do like on paper putting him with Nick Waugh. because they're both a little slower. So maybe playing together could help them a little bit. Like I understood, I actually really liked on paper the lines that Bednar put out there to start the game. I liked Waugh and Nelson with Lekanen. Couple of slower, more methodical, cerebral, savvier players, and Nelson and Waugh with a more scrappy puck hunting Lekanen. I liked that. I liked Kadri centering Nichushkin and Colton. I liked that line. I liked the lines on paper. But I think that, and there's a reason. I mean, I ranked the top line as the worst of the four lines tonight for the Avs, and I just felt like they weren't aggressive. They were looking for those clean zone entries in the open ice, and the thing is, that's not Natchez and McKinnon's game. So whether it is sticking with Lekanen, Landeskog, McKinnon, I think Natchez could thrive on a line on his own. I think that the ice could, because with McKinnon and Natchez both kind of lurking right now, I'd rather have one of them lurk with two puck hunters, and look for Natchez to be the creator on his line and McKinnon to be the creator on his line. It's just something I'd consider. Okay. Jared Bednar is an excellent coach. He has pushed largely, very largely, all the right buttons. He's criticized for going to Mackenzie Blackwood in game 4 in Minnesota. That turned out to be a good move, and all was well that ended well. They won that series in 5. Jared Bednar will make the appropriate moves, whatever he decides to do. I don't think that you're looking at anything defensively. Look, let's see how much Jack Ashawn played tonight. It was probably barely anything at all. He played 7:34. Okay, so in a game 1, they let him play 7.5 minutes as opposed to the 3 minutes he got in a game 5. So, again, it's a game 1. These are all important, but if you're going to drop one, it's a game 1. If you're going to play Jack Ashawn 7.5, it's a game 1. If you're going to sit Cale Makar in a situation where perhaps Cale could have played if this was a game 7 or something like that, you sit Cale in a game 1. Okay, this is a game 1. If there was ever a time for any of these things to happen, it would be a game 1. Or potentially, the other situation would actually be you're up 2-0 after holding serve at home and you're a little lazy in a game 3 on the road. That's exactly what happened in the last round. So actually, the Avs have chosen two of the more advantageous situations to play like absolute dog shit. That was a game 3 when you're already up 2-0 and a game 1 when you do have home ice. So, okay. Let's take some deep breaths here, but there's no doubt about it that this Vegas team this is the, and I saw somebody bring out my use of the phrase on paper, and I'll say it again. I'm sticking to it. This is the on paper Vegas Knights team from the start of the season. I was surprised Vegas struggled this season. Is that who they were? And I'd like to believe, like I said, that the sample size is large enough that will show up. That Vegas Golden Knights team will show up in this series, the one that underperformed, the one that let Anaheim lead the Pacific for a bulk of the season. I like to believe that team will show up. They might be getting Mark Stone back as soon as Friday night. He skated for like 30 minutes at practice today, and they flew him to Denver. Now, maybe they think, hey, we stole our game. We don't need to play Mark Stone if he's not quite ready. Let's save him now for game 3. And, with that in mind, maybe Vegas is, because again, OKC was able to even up with San Antonio tonight. It's a pattern you see play out a lot where, a very good 1 seed can drop a game 1, but they make things right and they even up the series of 2. And now it's all about stealing it on the road. Okay. So, that's the mission right now is get Friday night. Don't go down 2-0. Or maybe Vegas decides, hey, Stone's ready or ready enough. Let's go for 2-0. You put Mark Stone out there, that's going to make things even tougher for an offense that largely struggled tonight for the first 2 periods, really. And how much of, the Avs looking better in the third was Vegas being up 3-0 and 3-1 and not pushing as much offensively themselves. It's gonna make you look a little better, especially on your ice. And Stone's back. And man, back in 21, when they beat him, it was Mark Stone who really gave Nathan MacKinnon problems. I thought that was the biggest difference in that series. I remember saying that at the time. And it's an older Mark Stone, but still damn good player. Hockey players can age pretty well. Freaking Brett Burns is still playing. You know what I'm saying? So Mark Stone still got it, and you got to think it's game 3 at the latest that he's back, and that's only going to help Vegas. That's only going to help their defense. And the Avs had a big issue breaking it on their home ice tonight. And if Stone's back in Vegas, it's even tougher on the road. So when's Cale Makar back? If they're getting Stone back, when is Cale Makar back? Does the sense of urgency go up for like if Cale could have played if this was a game 7 tonight, but now you're down 1-0? Does this up the sense of urgency for Cale to play on Friday nights? And what I mean by that in a way is conversely, had the Avs won tonight, could they have looked at it and said, well, Cale's not quite ready. Let's hold him out Friday night. But does that change things? Where now they say, no, Cale, if you can go, we'd like to have you out there. Or we really need you out there. And Cale pushes. Because, they look like a team that does need Cale Makar, but it is frustrating because, this didn't deter. When I heard the Cale Makar news today, I didn't think, oh, they're screwed. We praised their depth in the Wild series, that they could lose a Sam Malinsky, they could lose an Arturi Lehkonen, and they had capable bodies. Now, there is a difference when you lose a Makar or a MacKinnon, but it was one, and it's an elite player, but it is just one player for an extremely talented team. Like, Cale is not the only driver of this offense. There are a lot of offensive drivers on this team. There are a lot of offensive creators on this team. And for what you miss from Cale defensively, well, the emergence of Malinsky, the extremely solid play of Kulak, who you traded for, Manson's back, Burns is playing well. Obviously, Taves, you felt like you could have masked it, even just for a night. You could have masked what you missed with Cale for one night, but they could not. They absolutely could not. There was no offensive driving without Cale Makar. I do think the defense was fine without Cale. I don't really put, the 3 goals on the defense or even Wedgwood. The Coughlin goal is Nelson falling down on the other end, and it's a brief 5-on-4 that they capitalize where you can see Nelson's too late to pick up Coughlin. That's not defense. That's Nelson falling down on the other end. That's not Wedgwood. That's what that is. The Dorofeyev power play goal is just, it's the Colton roughing. Say what you want about Rasmus Anderson's reaction, but it's a sick play by Marner. I thought your PK was great tonight, except for a sick play by Marner. And the Howden goal was just a shot block off a Malinsky shot, break out the other way. It's not defense. It's not really goaltending. So I don't think they missed Cale defensively as much as they missed him offensively and what he creates. The rushes, the anchoring of the power play, because they lacked a ton of offensive juice in the first 2 periods of this game. I would not think that we're in for a goaltender switch. Don't think that, as I essentially just said, Wedgwood had any blame on this tonight. That being said, I suppose I will just throw possibilities out there. I wouldn't expect this to be the case, but does Jared Bednar want to cycle Blackwood in? It does seem like he put Blackwood in replacement of Wedgwood when he pulled Wedgwood in the game 3 in Minnesota, just simply as a message sender. Could he go with a message sender in the form of starting Blackwood? Not sure that makes a ton of sense, but I'm just throwing it out there. Keep Wedgwood fresher. especially after, you lose game one. That increases the likelihood that this is 6 or 7. It does. So, as we saw last round, we saw both goaltenders last round, and that went 5. And we knew all along we were probably going to see both. So, the longer this series goes, the more likely we are to see both goaltenders due to fatigue or just that one game where, the maybe Vegas pot's 5 and you just got to make a switch. And then those things just happen. Okay. Those things happen. It's a tough league. Scott Wedgwood and Mackenzie Blackwood are very good goaltenders, but neither of them are Patrick Waugh. Okay. Neither of them are Patrick Waugh. Carter Hart, for that matter, is not Patrick Waugh, nor is Aiden Hill. Okay. Goals are going to be scored in this series. As good of a season as Wedgwood had, as good as Blackwood can be. Goals are going to be scored. We could see a goaltender switch for that reason. We could see a goaltender switch just because Jared Bednar wants to keep both guys fresh and to keep them in the rhythm that he's, been alluding to. He might want to keep them in because it's what they've been doing all season long. So just wanted to throw that out there because I cannot rule out Blackwood starting any given night for a number of reasons because of the way that they've managed this tandem all year, which has been pretty consistent, but also a little unexpected at times. I would expect, though, Scott Wedgwood to be back in net on Friday. But as I wrap that conversation up, I can once again say that it was not on the goaltending and it was not really on the defense. It was on the offensive want to, the skate south, the north-south skating. You got to skate south. You got to force the issue. And like I said earlier, you can tell with this team because they had that step in the third period. And you did not win the Stanley Cup by beating the Minnesota Wild. You have got to bring it every night, every second. If you want to win another cup, it is not easy to win a Stanley Cup. It is very difficult to win a Stanley Cup. The effort required is high. You can be the best team in the league, the President's Trophy winner. You still have to bring it every single night. It's a tough league. It's a parity league. It's a salary cap league. But I will not panic unless I think if any update on Cale is negative. I think if Cale is back in this series, and obviously the sooner the better, I think that's going to be a gigantic boost for this team. But they still should be able to win without him. This was absolutely an effort thing tonight. This was. And there could be a number of reasons for why that was the case. And we hope for a better one on Friday night. We hope that Alex Ryan-Emmy, I hope that Raj is back with me. As much as I like to talk uninterrupted for 40 minutes, and Lord knows I do. I anticipate and hope for the return of my dude on Friday. And maybe with Raj's healing voice, that will change the tides. Does everything hinge on Raj's throat? Is that the voodoo that's going on here? Get better soon, buddy. Need you back on this show. All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to Between the Pipes here on this Wednesday evening. The Avs are now 8-2 in the playoffs. If you look at it that way, it's all about perspective. There's a lot of series left to be played. Okay. Even this thing up at 1 on Friday night, and we'll have a much different conversation. And that is when we will talk to all of you on Friday night. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. For myself, we'll talk to you on Friday.